On today's show,
Yeah, Club Victim. It was super fun, but it was very much like heavy metal.
this is K Rock Cast, the podcast where music and perspectives collide.
I'm Anne, a music lover who's the ultimate fan.
And I'm Kelly, a professional musician. Join us as we dive into the world of the Rose and other Korean and Asian rock bands.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll wildly disagree, but what's guaranteed is a passionate, hilarious, and unfiltered conversation about the music that unites us and the bands that inspire us. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is our episode Into the Sweet Sonora. We are excited to bring you an artist spotlight interview today with Kelly, an artist that you featured not too long ago in our artist recommendation segment. I think it was in our Into the Wardrobe Part 1 episode, which is one of our highest watched episodes. So I know a lot of our listeners then might remember this artist. Kelly, do you want to introduce us today to Juju Be Good?
I do. Hello, everybody. This is the wonderful Juju Be Good. So, Seoul-born, LA-based singer-songwriter Juju Be Good is the ultimate DIY artist. His genre-bending music encapsulates rock through funk and soul. For example, the beautiful track Sweet Sonora is a blurring cross between early 80s Fleetwood Mac and late 90s Nick Cave. It's a really fabulous mix, and we absolutely adore it. Now, for a few of our K-drama lovers out there, and if you're eagle-eyed and eagle-eared, you may well have noticed his track on EXO Kitty. And he did a truly awesome remix version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That track is just absolutely fabulous. I love Tears for Fears anyway. It was something I was brought up with. So since 2019, he's released 2 EPs, the sci-fi influenced Future Boy and the Romantic Garden, and the genre-twisting album Smile, You're on Camera. His next adventures is Greetings from LA, a self-reflective voyage of exploration, and come on, this is our podcast, Anxiety. So let's just welcome Juju Be Good. So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey through music?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, and hello everybody. My name is Juju Be Good. I'm here in LA. I'm a singer-songwriter, producer, and artist. I've been making music since professionally under Juju Be Good since 2019. I moved to LA, well, New York then from Korea. I was working in Korea briefly after college, which I went to in upstate New York. And then I moved to New York. I was making bedroom beats and I was kind of trying to figure out what to do. And then COVID happened. And now I'm in LA trying to do more music. I'm in a band now and I'm working on some new stuff and meeting new friends and get to be on podcasts like this. Yeah. That's
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
we're
what's
so excited to have you. First, I love the name, Juju Be Good. I remember we have a common acquaintance. Shout out to Sarah, who introduced us to your amazing music. And when she said your name, it caught my attention immediately because it was something I was familiar with in terms of like Johnny Be Good. So it's
yeah,
like something that I immediately gravitated to, but it was also kind of different, kind of playful. I want
right.
to know, is there a story? Is there a
There,
story behind the name?
yes. So my Korean name is Juhan. So my nickname was Juju just in high school and college, and I that's just a name I got so used to because people were calling me that all throughout college and stuff. So when I was trying to come up with like an artist name, I thought Juju could be good, but
Yeah.
you know, I guess I thought that was a little too short, and maybe there are too many Jujus. And then I was just kind of reading something, and they were talking about how Johnny Be Good was one of the first music they sent to space or something. Do you guys know that story?
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know
When they
that.
first launched like
Yeah. Yeah.
Rocket, they included a couple like American pop music and like some other classical music and stuff. But Johnny Be Good was like one rock and roll track they included. And that kind of brought me back to my childhood because Johnny Be Good was the first song I sang in a band when I joined in middle school.
Oh, wow.
So and there's like sort of a history to me with that song, and
Yeah.
that's how I really started making music. And that's was sort of a pivotal moment in my life, because when I first came to the States, I didn't really speak English well, and I had a hard time kind of fitting in. But when I joined the band, um, I became kind of out of luck. I became the singer in the band because no one else could really sing. Um, and they gave me that song, and they were kind of practicing that song, and they gave me the lyric sheet, but I knew all the lyrics and how it went because I watched Back to the Future growing up too many times. I always
Exactly,
sort of see
right.
it, and the hook is very simple, and
Yeah.
I didn't really know what the song was about. I don't think I really knew it then, but I could sing the English words, so
Mm,
I sang it, and that's how I started singing that. And it's funny because the song kind of talks about Johnny who couldn't read or write, but who could
mm.
sing a guitar, and so that's kind of like the story behind Johnny Be Good, and I guess that's what Juju Be Good is too. So I like to say Johnny Be Good is my father, and
I love
so
that.
there's like
Love
a
it.
whole universe to it. I recently found this track called Lady Be Good, and so I guess she's my mom.
I
So
love
that's
that.
the Juju Be Good universe. And then yeah, I saw it when I was reading that article. All that just kind of passed my brain, and I was like, oh, Juju Be
Hold on
Good
a
is
minute.
my artist name. That's perfect.
It is.
I love
And,
Love
it. Yeah.
and then later on, people told me like Jujube is also like this type of fruit. I
Yeah.
don't know if
Right.
you guys, yeah, the dates, yeah.
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 I didn't know they were called jujubes. We eat them. We have them a lot in Korea, but people, every time people go to like farmers market and see them, they would like send me pictures. I'm like, why are you guys sending me all these weird fruits? And but that's jujube. So yeah, some of my fans or listeners who don't know Johnny Be Good would just think I'm
Yeah.
really into that fruit.
Hey, I think it's smart to have a name that people, like I said, for me, I gravitated to it because I was familiar with Johnny Be Good, right? Or
Yeah.
if you're familiar with the fruit Juju Be, then it for you, then it allows people to remember you easily. So
Yeah,
smart on you.
Yeah.
my mom was not a big fan of it. She was like, "How do like it's so hard to spell it? Like, what is it? Like, I have to like every time she explains to her friends, like, because there's like that little dot after B, and then there's E at the end, so it's not like a conventional spelling. So
So, what were the records and artists, or even albums, when you were growing up in Seoul, that you listened to that really stuck with you and sort of kind of made you who you were or are even?
my intro to music, well, just pop culture was K-pop when I was growing
Oh yeah,
up, and my mom's a violist, so I did grow up playing a lot of different instruments, but
Oh, wow.
when I really fell in love with music was like
Mm.
listening to music through radio and like watching these K-pop shows and following Big Bang. That was my big inspiration at the time. But this was when I was in elementary school, and I think I always had a thing for like singing on the stage and like all that. I was doing that since I was little. But when I came to the States, I joined the band and I knew how to play drums a little. So that's how I initially joined the band. In the second year, they didn't have a singer, so I started singing. And I didn't know how to perform on stage, so I had to pick up a guitar so that my hands don't look awkward all the time. Um, so that's how it all happened. And then that's when all my bandmates and people in my school were showing me, like the old classic rock. Like I went
yeah,
to this school in Connecticut, and sort of it was a school where like half of the kids play guitar, and like
Mm.
everyone had Les Paul in their garage or something, like because their parents would play something, and
yeah.
so we were very musical. Like it wasn't a music school or anything, but we had a great music instructor. That's how I got into those sort of classic rock, the Eagles and the Beatles, and then I started kind of getting more into jazz and stuff then. But yeah, my musical knowledge was much more like in the 70s and 60s,
Mm.
mostly growing up. And then that kind of met like K indie, where
Mm.
every time I would visit Korea, I would want to like play on like I would want to go busk or like sing for my friends, or like I was kind of carrying my guitar just because I wanted to play. I was going to these rock festivals, and my first rock festivals I went was in Korea, and that was 20. It was like my senior year in middle school, or like like first year in high school, and I got the ticket with two other friends, but both of them bailed like the night before. They're like, "Oh, like
Mm.
my parents are not letting me go. Like I have to go study for this." Like, so I was left alone. My mom dropped me off, and I was there, and I that's where I saw the Black Skirts, which is a very famous Korean indie rock band. Have you guys heard of the Black Skirts?
No.
The Black Skirts is yeah, he is it's probably my biggest inspo in terms of like K indie
Mm.
artists. Um, the Black Skirts and Peter Pan Complex. That's another Korean K indie. It was like sort of from the 2010s. And then there was Radiohead, James Blake that night, and that was my first time listening to Radiohead also. So I'll say the Black Skirts, and that's where I bought the first two albums of the Black Skirts, and I was
Mm.
listening to that a lot. Yeah, his stuff is very much melodic and has really good lyricism, but also like sort of storytelling
Mm.
lyricism. It has that indie sort of funky classic sound, but some electronic synth stuff. So it very much inspired what I was doing on Smile Your Own Camera. I'll say.
Yeah, I love that. I kind of have a follow-up question there. I think, hearing you say growing up in Seoul and you kind of fell in love with K-pop first, Big Bang. First, like first question, are you going to try to go on the reunion tour? You going to try to see them?
Um, I would love to, but I don't think I'm getting out of my way to find ways to go.
It's
But
going to be one of the biggest tours in 2026, that and
Yeah.
BTS.
wait,
Yeah.
so okay, so I didn't even know there. I mean, I know they're going to Coachella,
Oh, Big
right?
Bang's going on a reunion tour. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
well,
going
I
to be
mean,
huge in
sign me
26.
up. Maybe I can see
Yeah.
if I can.
All right,
But
my
no,
real
I'm so happy
question,
that
Juju, is
that goes back.
did you have any interest in ever trying to do the K-pop trainee
I
path?
was always, I mean, when I was little, that was like my dream. I was auditioning in a lot of these companies and trying to get my, you know, foot in the door, but it didn't quite happen. Well, there were some like talks here and there, but I was in elementary school at the time. And then my parents were like, "I'm gonna go study in the States," you know.
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
so that's kind of how it happened. But I was very big into it, and I was going to YG Entertainment. I was kind of just like camp out there and trying to get my um, opportunities to sing for them, and I was trying to like dance, and I was not really singing then. I was trying to like rap and dance because that's mostly what I liked about K-pop, and
Yeah.
like the fashion style and stuff like that. So I was always going to these like wholesale markets after class, and with my best buddy then, and we would just try to shop like cool G Dragon look or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's yeah. So I was wearing like skinny jeans and like Nike like shoes. And then when I came to Connecticut, no one was wearing anything like that. They were like, "Why are you wearing skinny jeans?"
They're like, "What is this fashion trend you're trying
Yeah,
to
they're
bring
like, "Oh
over
yeah,
here?"
cool." Man. I just had like all these. I mean, like that was so like 21 was out then, and like, they had the most like it was very punk look with like Jeremy
Yeah.
Scott Adidas stuff and like crazy like sneakers and like the whole like Kanye West sunglasses, and I was just kind of wearing stuff like that, and it was much more preppy, sort of like button down, like kind of like what I'm wearing right now, I guess. But
Yeah.
then the khaki pants and Sperry's, and I'm like, oh, interesting.
I've kind of been diving, through your various discography. And so I think like when I listen to songs on Smile You're on Camera, and then I've listened to songs on Your Garden album, which I love, by the way. I think selfishly is my favorite.
Oh,
Then I compare to Everybody Wants to Rule the World from XO Kitty, great track. And now your latest single, Sweet Sonora. One of the things that really strikes me is just how the genre and sound across those bodies of work is so different. And I think in several of our artist spotlight interviews that Kelly and I have been having lately, we've kind of been talking with other artists about this concept of music getting more and more genre less
mhm.
nowadays, which I think is great for the creativity of an artist. It allows you to, not be tied down to one category when you're making your music, but also I think can be a challenge, when you, particularly as an independent artist, need to market yourself, create a brand around your sound. So what's your perspective on this?
I agree. I think nowadays it's like there's no reason to define yourself to one genre. And I know that bothers a lot of artists, including myself, because we always want to be defined or like kind of get categorized into something. And it's easy to communicate yourself through that way. I think big part is because music is getting so widely distributed and we can so easily consume, and there has been so many music in history. Just recording music only like is almost getting, I guess, past 100 years now. So there are all these different types of music, and we have access to all this. It's getting easier for everyone to mix and match stuff, and
Mm,
that's, I guess, that was kind of how K-pop was too in some ways. But
Mm.
it wasn't something I was intending to do. I think just that's how it kind of naturally come out. And for a while, I was trying to kind of box myself into something. I was like, I need to
mm,
do more rock, or like I need to do more R&B, so that, whatever that, I think I just didn't feel comfortable being all over the place.
mm,
But
Yeah.
as time goes by, I get to talk to other people who listen to all these different things, and they point out how they like that, or I guess there is beauty to like being able to express myself in different ways. And I like to often compare it to like movie directors.
mm,
As an example, like Tarantino has like a Western themed movie, and then he has like, or like Paul Thomas Anderson would have like romance films, and then he would have like a heist film, or
mm,
like some,
Yeah.
they're all like these movies all have different settings and different mood and different characters. So I think when I'm approaching these music, I want to embrace different genres in my
mm.
different albums and try to do my own take on it. That's certainly what I want to do more going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Do you find that there's some through line, some commonality, something that is still, Juju be good, regardless of the genre of the music you create, that your listeners kind of will say, okay, this is a Juju song.
That's hopefully what I mean, because that's what I hope for.
Mm,
But I realize that that's something, I think it's hard for me to define that exactly, because I'm
mm,
not premeditating like this has to have this
mhm,
so that it sounds like Juju. But and I think I almost over kind of processed that when I was making music at one point. But I would hear these feedback from people who say, "Oh, like I can kind of hear you, like I can tell that you did this too because you did, whether that's through my voice or through certain metaphors I used, or just the song structure or something like that." I think there is something about it that I cannot really define it myself,
Yeah.
but I guess it's largely more of like an intuitive or sort of a vibey thing, rather than I use this. some theoretical chord or structure here in every song of mine, or um, like that. Yeah.
So one of the things we
Yeah.
always like to ask is what your sort of musical writing journey is. Now, I know when I'm writing music, it can sort of flip and flop between something that you painstakingly work on. You've had this one idea for like 4 years, and whatever happens, you are
Mhm.
going to use this one idea. Or
Yeah.
you have the other side of it, and you have like this divine download that comes out of nowhere and it just appears. Is that something that you tend to find you have a balance of, or do you have a very specific sort of style of writing?
Right. I also love the term divine download. That's a great yeah, that's a great saying. I agree. I can picture that. This is a great question because I think it is sort of related to what Anne just asked. It is what defines the process, and how I make music is ultimately what defines what Juju Be Good is, I think.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
And I think I do take very ritualistic process.
mm,
And the process has always been, it's always different, but it's something, but the process can be done in a million ways. So
mm,
um, I'm sure I have a specific process, even though I feel like I have all these different ways I do. But I do notice that I guess there are two types of writing largely in the way I do it. Versus it's very much premeditated, like there's like a story I want to say, or there's like a specific metaphor I want to highlight, and I start from there, and that's sort of the important part of that music.
yeah,
And a lot of Smile Your Own Camera was written kind of like that. I knew I wanted to say something, and I wanted every song to be part of like a whole album. I had to kind of think through a lot of things, like almost like a puzzle piece that would ultimately decide what kind of music style I will marry that with some certain music style or
mm,
groove or song structures and stuff like that. So that's how Smile Your on Camera was written. And because of that, it just took me a really long time because it was like solving like a Sudoku. But even within that album, there are a couple songs that wasn't really written like that. And largely my first two albums, although they were thematically always, there was like a big umbrella and theme to it. Some of the songs were definitely much more freestyled and sort of written in the moment. And that was very much vibe driven thing.
mm,
And that's another thing. I mean, it's not as premeditated as some of the songs, but I guess when it happens, I kind of just, when I'm writing something or when I have a beat or when I'm playing guitar, I guess I just let myself say whatever, sort of like stream of consciousness. And then just I will post edit a little bit, but that's totally different thing. But I think sometimes that's even more impactful than something I like, worked on for a couple
yeah,
months. Um,
yeah,
sometimes it will come out in like, like 2 minutes, and I don't even know how I wrote it. Maybe that is divine download. And I
yeah,
do really believe in that the more I do it. Even if I'm premeditating, it is essentially all divine downloads because it is all collection of moments at the end. Yeah, I'm working on an acoustic EP right now, and well, actually all of it was one take
oh,
recording.
wow,
wow.
And I'm trying to just embrace that mindset and process more because
Mm,
I guess it's all collection of moments, and like um it I want to capture that rather than
mm,
like,
yeah,
I mean all these songs were written and I knew what I was singing. It's not like I'm just freestyling, but
right.
it is something I practice, and then but when I'm recording it, I am trying to just do it one take so that
yeah,
I love that. Particularly, I think if this is an acoustic, album you're working on, to me, acoustic should have this kind of rawness, this
Mhm.
just, not heavily processed in production. And so if you're just doing one take, it can include that level of unpolished,
Yeah.
which we probably
yeah,
is opposite of what you feel like you should put out, right? We should put out this polished, perfect product every
Mhm.
time in terms of mass marketing and commercial
Yes.
appeal. But I love that kind of
Yeah,
take.
no,
Yeah.
I want to embrace that imperfection more as I
Yeah.
go, and kind of reminds me of like, sort of like modern art paintings or something like
Mm,
where you see like these scribbles
mhm.
Yeah.
in the brushstroke, and it's never like perfect, but it's just sort of the energy and capturing that, attitude, I guess.
Yeah. It's also what
Um,
I personally love about live music versus
yes,
hearing
yes,
that song, on the album of the artist, because you are getting that imperfection that comes through live performance, and so
mhm,
it sounds like you're kind of trying to
for
capture
sure.
that.
Yes,
Um, let's talk a little bit about lyrics. Do you have a particular lyric from one of your songs that you're most
yes.
proud of? Maybe one that still really resonates the most with you?
This is a great question because I people sometimes ask me this and I have no idea. I'm like,
Ah,
oh, and like I and like
in the moment, is it
no,
hard to like recite?
yeah, at the moment I have no clue. So I had to kind of think about this. I was going through my discography, I'm like, which song do I like?
I was just going to say, this is insanely hard to put somebody on the spot like this.
No, I no no no, I got this.
Go on,
Um,
go for it.
so sort of the quirky one, and I
Mm,
was talking about this Sarah on like I go live on TikTok sometimes, and we were talking about it. Um, there's a line I wrote on this song called Sunset Bossa Nova, which is in my
mm,
EP Garden.
mhm,
It's in Korean,
mhm,
and it's sort of like a love song kind of thing. But one of the line goes, 오늘은 내 곁에, 내일은 내일해, which means today you're gonna be with me, tomorrow. And so this is here I say 내일은 내일해, which is sort of a pun. So 내일 means tomorrow, but 내일 can also mean your job.
mm,
So I'm basically saying tomorrow you can do tomorrow, but it almost sounds like tomorrow you can do your job. So today spend time with me, but tomorrow you can go do your job. But the other thing about this is nail sounds like nail, and
mhm.
people do their nails and stuff. Um, so it could sound like you can do your nails tomorrow. Three different meanings there, and when I wrote that, I was like, "Oh, that's so funny!" And it's so and I've never heard anyone saying that before, so I think that's sort of the quirky one that I really like.
That's good.
Yeah. I love that. Love that song. I love like the interesting song titles on Garden.
Uh huh.
Which personally I love Apple
Yes.
Apology
Apple
because
pie.
it's
Yes.
Sagwa Sagwa, which both mean apple and apology. So
Yes,
that's
you're right,
funny.
and yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's very much like what I just said too. And I met the guy who featured on that track. At that time, he went by an artist named Skim.prod, but now he
Mhm.
goes by Avenue. Um, he's from Atlanta. He was hanging out with me here in LA. So we were talking about, oh, we gotta do Orange Apology, like for 5 year anniversary.
I love that.
Oh, brilliant. I
I
love
So
love
that.
look
that.
up, and maybe we'll have some other fruit apology coming up.
I
Um,
love that. Well, I mean, you're fluent in Korean, you're fluent in English. What do you find yourself naturally writing in?
I've been writing more in English lately.
Mm.
Um, but the way I express things in Korean and English is just so different.
Yeah, so
Like,
tell us a
Yeah.
little more about that.
I think in Korean, it's easy for me to be very poetic and
Mm.
be abstract.
Mm.
Um, whereas with English, and I think I feel more romantic when I'm talking in Korean. There's something more, something that's, it's like a subtle thing, but just the
Mm.
way I say Korean, and there's warmth to Korean delivery, I think.
Mm.
Whereas English, there's more, it's much more of like how it sounds, I think. I don't think I'm trying to be like too abstract or poetic with my English writing. I think I'm just trying to kind of say what I need to say,
Yeah.
Mm.
but also making sure like the rhymes and like like sort of the flow of it works. Um,
Mhm.
without over dramatizing anything. Whereas like Korean, like I feel I don't mind being too abstract or exaggerating, you know. So I'll say those are the big difference for me.
I think that's so interesting because I also kind of felt, and so please correct me if I'm not accurate in this. I felt like, K-pop as an example will have so many songs that are a very heavy mix of
Yeah.
English and Korean, which I personally think is a real challenge in the differences in the languages for some of the reasons you just kind of shared, but also structurally to create a song that's cohesive and makes sense with both English and Korean lyrics. But I feel like your songs are mostly either English or Korean. I didn't
Yeah.
notice as many that are like a mix of the two
Right.
languages. So do you find,
You're right.
kind of for those reasons, you kind of focus on one or over the other then?
I think so. Although there are times where I would write like second verse in Korean or English,
Mm.
and then keep everything else in the other language, which I've been doing for my next album a lot.
Mm.
But I agree. Like I don't think I'm trying to mix them like almost like line by line,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is really cool. And I and I thought about doing it too. I guess I am kind of trying to channel like certain feeling or
Mm.
picture in one song, and it can get a little confusing if I'm just like mixing all these words. On a side note, for a while I just felt almost insecure about like singing so much in Korean in America.
Mm.
And I just noticed that a lot of people, and I guess that is what music is, but a lot of people were still gravitating towards it. And a lot of
Mm.
my listeners are non-Korean speaking
Mhm.
listeners. And I think there is more like a sonic thing to music than just like words. So
Mhm.
I've been trying to embrace that, but also I've been challenging myself more in writing in English, and
Mm.
yeah, it gives me another door to imagine and like tell stories. When I'm doing that, I guess I want to just like keep it in that mood rather than like mix it with other languages.
I just think it's so interesting, maybe how you're seeing your audience in different areas. Do you find that you have an audience in Korea as kind of now US based creating your music?
I had a couple shows last year, like a small thing in
Yeah.
Korea, like showcases, and it was like a room full of just like I played at this like it was called Club Victim, I think.
I
It
know
was like
Club
a very
Victim.
much like
Yeah, yeah,
Club Victim.
yeah.
You been there?
No, but it's on my list to visit. I
Okay,
definitely know
okay.
what
Wow,
you mean.
great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Club Victim. It was super fun, but it was very much like heavy metal. They had like
Yeah,
these
it is.
big
It's a
sad
metal
march,
club.
like, and this one like sort of like a high school. There was one girl who was like in front of the stage, like who was right in front of me. I wasn't like looking at her, but I like sensed that she was there. And then when I was done, like she came up to me and said, "Oh, like I love your music, so I came to see you, and like
Oh,
I was gonna come with my friend, but like blah blah blah." And then like, but that really made my day, like
That's
I just didn't think
amazing.
that I was gonna sing to anyone who knew me that night.
Right,
yeah.
But
right.
she like saw me on Instagram and like, like I yeah, like and that was like, oh, like this really happens, like people will listen to my stuff and feel something and want to come see me live. And so yeah, I think
That's
I don't
great.
know where these people are, but there are some people out there.
I just think that's the beauty of social media now to be able to
Yes.
provide artists this global platform, to where you can be performing in Korea and but you're based in the US in LA, but someone's, heard your music and seen you and then comes to see you perform live.
머리부터 발끝까지 콩깍지 가스연한 커피를 들고 햇볕 아래서 널 기다리다 내 마음이 녹은 것 같아. Let's go out in the sun. 느낌이 왔어. 이 리듬에 맡겨 발걸음에 맞춰. Fly with the wind. 이 분위기를 타고 날아가지 못한 곳에 데려가줘.
I'm going to Korea in November again.
Oh, great. Are you performing?
Yeah, I actually just got like a 1 gig confirmed, so I want
That's
to play
great.
more. And I had made some connections last year there, and I distribute through this company called Poklanos, and the people there have been very supportive, and they've been introducing me to a lot of people. I released deluxe edition of Smile with them.
How do you see your role as South Korean in LA? Do you feel like you have an advantage or it's a disadvantage? How do you feel it kind of molds how you can market yourself and how your music's received? Because it's something that's always
This
interested
is
me, and I'm never 100% sure whether it's sort of a
no, this is,
yeah.
I think, a very important question, and I think something I'm still trying to figure out.
Mm.
But it's always on my mind. But I think big thing is kind of like how I talked about my lyrics. Like initially, I kind of had the question of like, why am I in America doing like Korean music?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw myself kind of getting playlisted into K R&B, K indie. So, and I didn't know that was a genre, honestly. Like I mean, there's K-pop and all, but like K R&B and K indie, like that term was like, whoa, there's K R&B, like if that's a thing. And I met all these like Korean artists who are doing stuff in America, but also, it's so big in Korea, and like it's really influenced by a lot of these Korean artists like Zion T or Crush
Mm.
or other indie bands. So I had that question like, why am I in America? Like, if I really want to do this, I should go to Korea. And often a lot of people will come up to me and be like, "Oh, have you ever considered like moving to Korea?" I think at the same time, although that feels like a challenge, I think that's exactly what's gonna differentiate me and what would be the real advantage for me,
Mm.
which is that it is, I guess there is sort of the responsibility for me as someone who's doing music in America, because America is where bigger music stages are and
Mm-hmm.
more opportunities are, and the market is. It hasn't like, and a lot of the talents are in Korea, and like the Korean artists are so fantastic. And every time I go back and meet all these indie artists, I'm like, wow, these people are like, they have their 10,000 hours. Like everyone's so good at their instruments. Their craftsmanship is so good, excellent. And I guess I was asking myself the question like, okay, then why am I here? Why am I even doing this?
Mm.
And I don't know how it's going to manifest exactly, but I think if I keep pushing my boundaries and like try my best in America, there will be some kind of good,
Mm-hmm.
um, out, meaningful outcome of, you know, Asian American, or as a Korean American or Asian American.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You can kind of see you're kind of on you're you're on your own journey, and
Mm.
it can have its own outcome that we never really seen before. So, and I think one way of that would be like just giving more opportunities to other local independent artists, essentially, so that artists like me or artists from different backgrounds can have more stages and be included into this music scene, and they can share their music. The other thing is like being able to be a bridge for other Korean super talented talents who don't speak English to come to Korea and share stage with me. And I know that a lot of these Korean talents are perfectly capable musically to play out here, but there's cultural barrier and language. But
Yeah.
as a person who've gone through that and experienced, I think that's where I can be helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there are all those things.
We've talked about this, Kelly and I, on numerous podcast episodes of, we talk a lot about the Roses Music, Korean rock band that really escalated their popularity internationally outside of
Yes.
Korea. Not many people actually know who they even are in Korea.
Right.
And so they kind of are trying to get into the Korean music market, which has been kind of hard for them. But yet there's so many other great rock bands and artists, like you mentioned, that are looking to go outside of Korea and would love probably the opportunities you're having in the United States to market your music. So it is so interesting, just
Yeah.
kind of hearing that you're going back to Korea and you're playing gigs there. It feels like still the music market in Korea very heavily in the K-pop
Mhm.
piece, but I think these kind of more indie artists, rock, or I personally love K-R&B. I think they're starting to get more visibility, which is really exciting, I think,
Mm.
in the Korean music
Yeah.
market.
Yeah, Korean market it's like big and small at the same time. Yeah, but that's really cool. I mean, like I do see like a lot of these bands getting international fandom and like fame, but it's kind of esoteric in Korea almost. It's like, oh, we don't know them, like because Korea's, I guess, largely it's a very trend driven country, and
Right. Mm.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
it's very still driven by like the mainstream charts stuff, and it's hard to find new music in some ways.
Yeah.
But if you really get into niche, there's just so many pockets of
Yeah.
people who are into like very specific stuff. And yeah, it's very interesting.
So we have a fun question,
All
Juju.
right.
We start to kind of wrap up the time with you. If you could headline a festival
All
with
right.
3 dream openers, and these artists could be living or dead, who would you pick and why?
Amazing. This is a great question. I had a fun time thinking about this.
Mm.
The first band, so if I have three bands, so it would be like, I guess, uh, four acts. So we'll start off with, there's this band, Korean band from the 90s called Light and Salt.
Mm.
And you guys should definitely check it out. One of their favorite song of mine, is called Fairy of Shampoo. And
I
you
love
guys
that
might have heard of
title.
it. Some K-pop groups have covered it.
Oh, wow.
But Fairy of Shampoo is a very groovy song, and it kind of inspired me to write this song called Ending Fairy. Um,
Mm.
Okay.
that's the story for later. But Light and Salt, they are, I think they're one of the Korean bands from the 90s who really mastered not just songwriting, but also just recording production and
Mm.
what they could do in studio. And I do often recognize that, like, oh, Korean, a lot of the Korean old stuff will have it's like a great songwriting, but they just didn't have the right recording
Mm.
environment. Whereas like a lot of the Japanese albums had a lot of great hi-fi recording systems.
Amazing recording systems, yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
amazing. But Light and Salt, they were really kind of ahead of its time, and they had the very much. It is different from the way Japanese were doing it, and every time I listen, they only have four albums, I think, and it's just full of vibes. By the first album, there were three members, I think, but eventually they only had two people left. But they were all part of this another Korean artist. They were like a session band beforehand.
Mm.
And Salt, I would love to see them live. I don't think they really perform anymore.
Mm.
So that'll be a great opener. There are some clips of them performing on YouTube, and it's very vibey, like all the 90s
I
lights.
love this, Juju. We've got this new. Can you come back for our new segment, Juju recommends? Because I feel
Yeah.
like you've dropped what 3 different artists that we
Here we
have
go,
to
you're
check
telling
out
me.
now.
Well, yeah. We're gonna make it happen. Yes,
Special guest, Juju recommends popping in.
yeah. And then the second band is not Korean. They're from Long Beach, California, and I've been obsessed with them. Um, Sublime.
Yeah.
Sublime. Oh
Yes,
yeah.
the
Oh
bride, yeah.
yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah. Good
I,
pick.
it's it's just too good. And it does really make me. I mean, the way Sublime kind of incorporates all these black music, like reggae and
Yeah.
Jamaican ska and all this, and
Love
make it
it.
and hip hop and make it into like his own thing, is so inspiring. And I think I am really trying to learn from him. And
Yeah.
I think one of my tracks, Cameo, kind of has that energy,
Mm.
and it's like sort of a reggae based song,
Mhm.
but love
I can see
Sublime, and
that. Yeah.
it's in my car right now. I've been listening to
I'm
their
loving this festival so far, Juju.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right,
down
who's
for
your
it.
last
Yeah,
pick?
come on then. So who's your
I'm
third?
down for this so far.
Third is I have two options in case one of them can't make it.
Okay.
Okay,
so
we like that.
Okay, come on then.
Chuck Berry,
Yeah.
Chuck Berry, right before he was
Yeah.
Oh, you
giant.
have to. Taking it
yeah,
back
yeah,
to the
yeah.
beginning, the
Yeah.
origins.
But if Chuck Berry doesn't make it, we can have the Beach Boys.
Oh, okay. That was
Yeah.
a surprise one, Juju. I wasn't
Definitely.
expecting that.
It would just be a great night, you know.
It would be.
Yeah, no, I just love those surf rock stuff, and Beach Boys have all these like
Yeah.
the Pet Sounds and R.I.P. Brian Wilson. I was kind of learning his songwriting. I mean, I was always listening to Pet Sounds, but when Brian Wilson passed away 3-4 months ago, I was kind of learning some of his songs, and just it's just so beautiful, and the way he writes is nothing I've seen before. Just the chord progressions and the structures and stuff, but just the harmony and all. It would be crazy to have Beach Boys up. I mean, all these
Yeah.
I mean, these are not gonna ever happen, obviously, but
Could
thinking
happen
about
Hey,
it, I'm like, wow.
Juju, the future K-Rock cast promoted festival with you headlining will have these artists. It'll all be in our dreams. So hey.
She's saying that. She
Yeah.
doesn't realise I'm on my track to making this happen. I will warn you.
That's right.
He's already in plan.
Maybe with all the AIs and VR, maybe we can all make it happen.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
exactly. Yeah, definitely. So, what is the weirdest inspiration you have ever had for a song? Whether it is, well, I mean, say weird. I mean, it could be a movie or a book or anything like that. But has there just been that one thing that's just sparked an idea, and it's just laid it in?
There's one thing. There's this Korean restaurant in New York City on 32nd Street called Miss Korea. It's called Goode Miss Korea. If you look at the sign, which Goode means missing or longing for.
Yeah.
Miss Korea. So they sort of had that pun thing going on. They were like, oh, it's like, because Miss Korea sounds like, oh, like someone from like a beautiful woman from Korea.
Yeah,
But
right,
it was
right.
really like Goode Miss Korea. I think they were trying to say, oh, we long for Korea. And I was like, oh, they have great K barbecue there. I was in a relationship a couple of years ago, and she was out in Atlanta, and for some reason I just kept calling her Miss Atlanta, and I later wrote this song called Miss Atlanta, and
Yeah.
that was sort of because we're in long distance, so I was longing for her. So it's like I miss you, but also miss Atlanta, and like I mean, it's like, but that title really, I later realized, oh wow, I got the inspiration from that Korean restaurant.
I love now hearing that song, like knowing the inspiration behind that song, because I love that song. That's so cool. Plus, I got to try that restaurant when I'm in K-Town in New York.
In that's in New York.
Yeah.
If you're ever in LA, there are, in my personal opinion, way better Korean food. But not just on the New York Korean food, but LA really got the Korean food here. So
Yeah.
We'll
the
get
K-Town in
the
LA
list.
is so much larger.
Yeah, we'll get the list from you later on. Don't worry for when we're there next time.
All right. So, Juju, for our listeners who may have just heard of you for the first time through K-Rock Cast, which song of yours do you hope they listen to next? And what do you hope they feel or think when they hear it?
I don't have any hopes, because it's entirely up to them to take their whatever they want to take from it. And I think that
Mhm.
is something I really realized the
Mm.
more I do this and like interact with people like you guys or like Sarah. Um, and I just realized that none of these musics really belong to me. I mean, it is
Mm.
very much divine downloaded, and I wrote it and I sent it to the world, and it really no longer is mine. And I really love that people, they have their own meaning to it and they fall in love with it or maybe not care about it, but like uh, but when they do fall in love or find
Mhm.
something in it, I think that's wonderful. And that's I guess that's the power of art. So
Mm.
I don't necessarily have any intention or hope, but if I can recommend a song, I think Speed of Everything is a good song to start with.
Mm.
Mm.
It's it's one of my yeah, that song just the hook I talk about, the hook goes 천천히 천천히 내게 다가와줘 is the hook. And I was just talking to my friend last night about how I came up with that lyrics. And
Mm.
I was watching this movie in New York, and this independent theater, and they were playing all these like esoteric movies. And that month was like this LGBTQ month, and they were only playing like these like gay lesbian movies. And I was like, all right, I just wanted to watch a movie, so I went in and watched it. It was about this lady who is kind of going through divorce, and she's like finally finding her identity, and like she's going to gay bars and stuff. And in one of the scenes she goes to the gay bar and she meets another lesbian woman, and they go home together and they start making out. But at one point the lady goes, slowly, so we can I want to remember everything, she says. And I thought I really just resonated with that, because I feel
Mm.
like when we rush and when we try to like when we're only thinking about where we're reaching, it's hard to almost remember what happened. So
Mm.
it's uh, not just when you're falling in love, but like just in general, I think it is really important to just take it slow and just really embrace every moment. And
Mm.
that's how Speed of Everything was. That line really inspired me to write Speed of Everything. And that hook that I sang for you guys just means slowly uh, come to me. Or like, and then I kind of repeats that like slowly fall in love with me,
Mhm.
so that we can remember and cherish this moment. So,
I
Speed of
love
Everything,
that. Speed of Everything.
there
Yes,
I kind of
listeners,
just
check it out.
showed my intention there, but you could still, I mean, for non-Korean speakers, you can listen to it, just groove to it. Maybe you will hear something you want to hear.
Absolutely. So let's wrap up. Anything you want to promote to our viewers and listeners, Juju?
I have an acoustic EP that I'm releasing soon. Not sure when
Ooh.
exactly, but I think I might release it unofficially if I can in the beginning.
Ooh.
Uh,
Okay.
I just started my Instagram channel where I share all my updates, and I'm just trying to interact more with my fans. And if you join, you will hear the updates. I have a whole another album about my trip to Arizona next year, and that's
Oh,
coming up with
wow.
that's going to be a big one with a lot of visuals and all, but it's still in works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give us your Instagram handle for our listeners so they can
Yes.
follow you.
My Instagram is at Juju B Good. It's spelled JujuBGoode at the end. So
Yeah, so listeners, we're going to have all of his socials in the episode description. So be sure to follow him on his various sites to stay up to date. Juju, I hope now you're a friend of the podcast. You'll
yeah.
come back on, talk about any future projects. Let us know. Keep us in touch with what you're doing. We want to continue to promote your music throughout. So on the podcast, Juju, we always wrap with a fun would you rather for our guests. So with Kelly, I am usually evil in the options I give her, but you're a guest, at least your first appearance, you're a guest. So I will
I
be
love
kind
it.
in my would you rather scenario to you. I won't promise if you come back that I might not give you an evil one,
No, you'll get
but
something mean next time. You will.
So let's wrap up. Would you rather produce an entire album using only vintage 80s synths or everyday household sounds, meaning like microwave dings, shampoo
Ooh.
bottles, a toothbrush rhythm?
Uh, I would have to go with the everyday objects.
Ooh, tell us why.
Um, I mean, 80 cents would be amazing, but it almost sounds too good to be true. But the real art will come from a bit of challenge, and I'm willing to face
Ah.
a little bit. I mean, but it's possible. I mean, it's people have done it in like YouTube Shorts and stuff. So, yeah, I think it will be a fun experiment.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what do you think are the household items you're gonna go to? What do you
Oh,
think could
that's
give a
really
good
interesting.
sound?
Oh, honestly, like the perfume bottles have a lot of cool sounds. Like you can
Ooh,
spray it, you can ding it,
ding it, yeah.
break it, you can pour it. Any food, I guess food is kind of cool. I don't know if food counts. If you're like
Hey,
frying
yeah.
something and you get
Get a
the
good
juice.
ASMR,
A little
intro in
ASMR,
there.
actually, yes.
Yeah. Everybody loves that.
No, no, I hate ASMR. I hate it with passion. It goes through me. I just sit there, it's like nails down a blackboard. I just can't do it. It's like, no. Why do people do
I
that?
love that.
There.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Juju. It was a pleasure.
It's
Thank
my
you so much for
pleasure.
taking time today. And yeah, listeners and viewers, check out Juju Be Good. His music is available on Spotify and all other streaming platforms. Follow him on social media. You will not regret it. See him live if you can. It sounds like he's going to be out touring throughout this year. So definitely check him out if you're able. All right. Thank you, Juju. Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank
guys.
Bye
you.
Wonderful.
bye.
This is Editor Kel, and for continuity reasons, I must point out the fact that I was freezing my arse off.
All right, everybody. That was our great artist spotlight interview with Juju Be Good. Kelly, we have to say thank you to Sarah who connected us with Juju. That was a great interview.
Thank you, Sarah. I love you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the interview with Juju Be Good as much as we did. Please rate our podcast. Leave us comments about this episode. We always love to hear your feedback. Again, follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube. We are at KROK_cast all across the board.
Click here to subscribe.
And we're also on Patreon. Thank you so much to our amazing Patreon members. We love you dearly. If you want to join and be a member of Patreon, it's easy to do, and you get great benefits. You get access to exclusive content, which includes some fun bloopers from Kelly and I, lots of great laughs, virtual hangouts, and discounts on upcoming K-Rock Cast merch. Email us at krock.cast@gmail.com. Kelly puts so much time in responding to every listener and viewer that sends us an email. So we love to hear from you. And check out our website, www.krockcast.com. All right, everybody. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Anson. You are watching and listening to K-Rock Cast. Check out their podcast and K-Rock Recommends for my music and other great independent artists.